Hey, Steelers Nation, there's a lot of buzz going out there about DeAndre Hopkins. And should he be a Steeler? Would he be a good fit? What are we looking at here? So, looking at the film of Hopkins, he has this great memory of making amazing catches and making things happen. Hopkins takes plays off more than almost anyone else in the NFL. We're talking Clowney level of quit in his game. And if you ever listen to Merrill Hodge talk about Clowney, Hopkins is in the exact same ballpark. Hopkins is also one of these players that is not known as a practicer. And when we look at the Steelers' complete mojo and energy coming out of the OTAs and going into training camp, it is all about competition, especially on the offense. So really all over the team, but it's all about competition. And there's spots up for grabs. Can Pickens take Johnson as the true number one receiver? Who's going to be the number 3 receiver? All of this is on the field. And I understand if we're looking at this from a Madden perspective, when this kind of off the field competition thing does not matter. Yeah, okay, if it's Madden or it's a video game, sure. Give me a super tall guy who will bring in, 12 touchdowns a year. I'm cool with that, but that's not the real life. And that's why I am against DeAndre Hopkins coming to the Steelers. Because when I look at this all said and done, he's not going to help the competition. And the competition that's going to be fostered at St. Vincent, as well as at minicamp this upcoming week, is going to be through the roof. And this team is the ultimate iron sharpens iron team. And overall, to get into the second person I want to talk about in this episode, it's much harder to make the team this year. So when I did that episode about how many receivers we have, which I'm going to tag at the end of this, on this roster, and how hard it's going to be to make the team. Who do you want to cut from the group? Because DeAndre Hopkins plays 0 special teams. So are we going to cut Boykin, who's one of our key special teams guys? Are we going to cut Miller, who has more upside at this point than Hopkins? Because the other part we don't want to forget about Hopkins is he got caught cheating taking steroids last year. That's why he was out for 6 weeks. And you don't take steroids that the NFL really aggressively checks for if you think your career's fine. Unless you're insecure, you don't do it. This isn't the 70s anymore, guys, when it's expected. This is the NFL where they're very black and white. You can take this, you can take this, and you can go look up the lists online. If you're trying to go beyond it, there's a reason, and it starts with insecurity. So if the player himself is already telling me he's insecure, why would I want to do that? And that's how I look overall at the Hopkins matter. Regardless of the price tag, I don't think that he is an addition to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's a much more likelihood chance he ends up bringing down the pot. And we have a chance to have this whole thing grow and this competition being immense. If Miller and Austin push themselves to it's like, oh, maybe they should be fighting in the same tier as Deontay and Pickens. Well, now your entire receiving room has elevated to notches higher. And you lose all of that as soon as you anoint someone the instant starter. And that is why I believe Hopkins is a bad selection here. That being said, I also don't want to see him go to Cleveland because when he does show up and play, he's good. And he was good with Watson. I just don't believe he's got 2 years in the tank. And, if he's in Cleveland, so be it. DeAndre Hopkins does have a lot of quit in him as well. The Browns in general have a lot of quit in him. So maybe it is a match made in heaven. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I don't believe Cleveland's a real threat. If they get Hopkins, maybe they become elevated from a level 1 to a 1.5. But they are certainly nowhere near DEFCON 5. So Hopkins 100% is not going to the Bengals because they're about to give all the money to Burrow and to Higgins. So therefore, I'm not really too worried about him. Put him down in Baltimore. Let that train wreck grow. But I don't think there's really going to be a chance where Hopkins is going to directly impact this division. And when we look at someone to further expound this point, a team that's a contender, desperate need of wide receivers, and basically Kansas City said no. It's a pretty big indictment about the player. So DeAndre Hopkins of Pittsburgh, No.